like no one will be nice. The wrong way around.
That's a good idea. I don't know how many more people have got.
So it's anywhere. So it's anywhere from this door all the way. It's like the balance anymore.
Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me? Loud? Yeah, we're actually live streaming, and Phil has got a microphone attached to him, so they can't hear me very well, but they'll hear Phil very well. So this is our 32nd consecutive meeting of the AI Study Group of the Manchester Statistical Society. There are some new people here, I think, quite a few, and you're all extremely welcome. I, as you know, sort of have been to a lot of AI meetings in the Manchester area, and I came across the study group about 2 or 3 meetings after it had started. And I then learnt that the AI Study Group was part of the Manchester Statistical Society, which itself is 194 years old, I think, this year. And it started out in the Industrial Revolution, and its origins were actually county people living in Bastings who had been attracted to the city to work in the mills and the factories in the Manchester area. So, November 23, the Statistical Society set up the AI Study Group because obviously AI is an important activity in what's going on in society today. And the rapidly increasing nature of artificial intelligence is something that I think actually affects all of us. And we wanted to really have a forum which enabled people to actually talk about it in an open, honest way and actually learn from each other. So the topic today it'll appear on Phil's slide in a second, but I think it has attracted a lot of new faces today, which is great. As I say, we meet in the third Tuesday every month, and the slide disappeared. I was just going to introduce Phil. So our speaker today, Phil, is actually a staff engineer working in AI at Umbraco, and he's involved in implementing agentic AI and development of the new Whittaker MCP service. So I've heard Phil talk a few times. I know it made a great presentation. Over to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for everybody coming out to come and see me talk, give this talk tonight. The most terrified, the most excited. So, my name's Phil Whittaker, as Stacey said. I'm a staff engineer at a company called Umbraco. Who's heard of Umbraco here? So yeah, Umbraco, that's quite a lot actually usually for Umbraco. So Umbraco is an open source .NET based CMS. It's been around for 21.5 years now, which is pretty long in terms of most software. And for them, I've worked with them for nearly a year now, a year tomorrow, in fact. And I look after MCP, I look after agent skills, and I help them on board with their AI journey. I also do training internally and help people to understand how best to use Claude Code, etc. So, why am I speaking here? Well, because Adrian and Christine asked me, mainly. But then, the other reason that I'm speaking here, when I started thinking about what I was going to say and what I was going to talk about tonight, I've seen a lot of this happening in the world of mathematics. So AI is changing mathematics a lot at the minute, but I think it's very much at the start of the journey. And I see lots of these types of headlines coming out, that it's solving proofs, solving problems, contributing to some part of mathematics. And then I see things like this, actively losing their own monopoly on problem solving. And these are conversations that I've been having with developers for a very long time, this, and a lot of creative industries are spearheading this kind of transition that we're going through at the moment, the AI transition. And third industrial revolution, very, very much so. So this is my talk today. It's a very personal talk. It's, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, you're going to dive deeply into my psyche, my worries, my anxieties, my concerns over the last, God knows how long, 10 years. 10 years I've been worried about this. 10 years I've seen this happening, this slow car crash that was going to happen and come across us. So with these slides today, I have lots and lots of references, I have lots and lots of blog posts and things that I've read over the time that will back up what I'm saying in each slide. Please don't take pictures of individual slides because all the slides are here. So take a picture of that and I'll share the same thing at the end of this talk. So start on a positive, I always say. Why so much excitement around AI? Well, for me, the first time I came across it from a coding perspective, it felt like a rubber duck. Now, if people are aware of that, so a rubber duck is something you have on a desk that you talk to. It's a sounding board. It's something that you can have a conversation with to come out with a better idea, to work out a better solution to the problem. And it felt to me very much like a rubber duck I could talk back to. It would talk back to me and give me information, give me things back. This is original ChatGPT times. I don't have to be as much concerned with the detail anymore. In terms of detail, I mean things like making sure all my variable names are set up in the right way. These types of details, the details of actually typing the code. There's no doubt about it, it does increase productivity. And everything changes so quickly. I don't know if people come to the meetup that help organise Practice AI, but we have an AI spotlight there. And it's usually 4 or 5 pages long of things. It's a really exciting time to be involved in this. And it's really exciting time to be looking at it and seeing all the changes and all things happening. It can be really, really creative. It can make you so much more creative. It feels like everything is a prompt away. You can try out any ideas in minutes. It can feel really, really empowering. This is why I'm so excited about AI and what's happening. And for me, it helps solve this problem. I've always said in my career that IT is like banging your head against a brick wall repeatedly to knock it down, to solve the problem, to find another brick wall directly behind the first brick wall. And it solves that problem for me. It allows me to fly. It allows me to move very, very quickly. So on the negative side, will my profession still exist in the next 2 years? How will I pay my mortgage? Do I need to retrain? Do I need to become a plasterer or an electrician or something like that? These are serious thoughts that I've had in the last 2 years. Will I lose my identity? I've been doing this for 26 years now. It's part of who I am. It's part of my DNA, my psyche. Am I going to lose that? Am I going to lose the communities that I'm so involved in and love so much? I was talking to Adrian about this last time, about how it's very strange that a group of people that are known for being insular and introverted, and you have just these amazing communities around it. And Umbraco is, I have my job because of the Umbraco community. And I don't want to lose that. It's an incredible thing. I really don't want to do that. I like to produce things. I like to create. I like to be productive. I like to have a worth in society. You see, there's an existential threat as well. There's enough blog posts about that, or could be leading to societal collapse. So we had so many talks I read so many blog posts that have talked about You know, the collapse of the middle class tax input and all sorts of crazy stuff. So this was where I've been for the last while. And the media didn't help at all. In 2 years, it's possible that most developers are not coding. AI could write 90% of code within 3 to 6 months, etc. Thanks, Dario. We're not going to hire any new engineers this year. Thanks, Mark. All of these things, I feel like I've been force-fed anxiety and worry for such a long time now. And it doesn't help that I'll go out and find it. But that's the nature of anxiety and worry. And a lot of people, they've said that it's never going to be good enough. The number of people that I've spoken to, oh, it's rubbish. It doesn't create anything very good. It doesn't create anything worthwhile yet. It'll never, ever get to that point. But I never believed that. I always thought AI was going to get better, was going to get to the point, was going to get to the watershed moment. The tsunami was coming. It was coming slowly, but I could see it accelerating in time. And I was so worried about it, well, 4 or 5 years ago now, I decided, I made a decision. I said I could either bury my head in the sand and not think it exists and ignore it, or I could embrace it. Keep your enemies closer was my strategy all along. And in November 2025, this was released. Sonnet was pretty good, but this was the most shed moment for me. This is the moment that everything changed, because it actually was good enough. The moment had finally come where the models were there. The models could do the thing just before Christmas to change. This quote from David Whitney, somebody I really respect, and I spoke to him in February last year, just as he released this blog post, which is 4,500 words if you want to go and have a read of that. But he said, I simultaneously have the time of my life building and sat here at my computer with the dread of looking at the end times. And that sums up my thoughts at that time. Excited and terrified. I've done countless talks this year, 15 or something like that. I've spoken to loads of people all over the country and loads of developers, especially from between January to March. These were the 2 words that everybody used. Exactly these 2 words as well. It's really, really strange how that happened. I think this is amazing. I think this is incredible. What the hell's going to happen? I'm really terrified as to what's going to happen here. And then I started talking to people about panic planning, the anxieties that people have and what it drove them to. It's amazing what worry and concern will do to people. I spoke to one developer who'd been paying 60% of his salary into his mortgage for the last 2 years to pay off as much as he possibly could for when things happened. These are real stories. I spoke to another person who this year, their aim, they set themselves at the start of this year when Opus 4.5 came out, to set up 12 companies in 12 months to try and get some form of income coming in, repeatable income, to try and support themselves. These are real people with real concerns about this. And then finally, I spoke to a CTO of a company who said to me, I don't want to spend the next 2 years making people redundant. I'm going to quit and go and set up my own small company and just do agentic stuff and try and find people. It's incredible how this has affected people. But, you know, this is the last bit of the negativity now. I'm going to try and go up from here. So the reality, after 6 months of letting the dust settle, the reality is that I'm still here. I'm still employed. I'm still doing my job as a software developer. It's changed quite a bit, as we'll see in a minute, but I'm still doing that. I'm still surrounded by software developers. There has been some movement in the market. There's been some redundancies around me and around us, but I'm still here. And the big question is, going back to the quote from Dario, is do I write any code? And the honest answer is no. I've not written any code for about 9 months now. And I was talking to my colleagues at Bracco, and we were saying, the first time we realised this, we were like, I'm a bit concerned about this. And then the more that you don't do it, the more you realise that it's not really that important anymore for you. The physical act of typing on the keyboard was just a barrier to getting things done, to creating things. As a developer, your job is to create clean, easily understood and maintainable code. That has always been your job. That's never going to change. It doesn't matter the medium that you take to get there, this is your job. The only difference now is that you're not writing, you're guiding, coaxing, commanding, prompting, and those are very much the words that I use when I'm shouting at my agent that's done the wrong thing for the 10th time. It's another level of abstraction over the top. Because if you don't get that right, if you don't keep your agent on a leash, you'll end up with this. It'll do crazy stuff. You need to keep control of it. You need to maintain it. You need to look after it. You need to know how to use it. You need to know how to manage intelligence. And the more I think about this now, the more I realise that that's our job, and probably a lot of other people's jobs now, is managing intelligence. Which is a really weird thing when you think about it, because you could say that managing people is managing intelligence. No, it's not. This is managing raw, pure intelligence in the right way that we can. And it is, it's just another level of abstraction. You're just moving up the chain a little bit. This phrase is really important to me, I think. Augment over automate. If you automate everything away, if you end up automating things so you don't have developers in front of you that are not looking at the code, that are not understanding the code, not working on the code, then you're ceding control. You might as well get the agents to produce pure binary. It could probably do it with a bit further training, but it could probably do that. And you don't really want to do that because you're ceding control. You don't know what it's actually doing. You don't know what it's working on. You don't know how it's doing anything. You don't know when anything goes wrong with it. How to get it better. How to understand. How to fix things. So don't automate. Augment. And that's really the point of this talk: is how we are augmenting now, how we're adding, how we're abstracting, and how we're augmenting over automation. This is a quote or a series of quotes. Our thesis is that the cost of code writing is 0. The cost of producing is definitely not 0. It isn't coming for jobs, it's coming for the mechanical parts. The parts are less interesting and less challenging. The parts matter for engineers. Your judgment, your taste, your understanding of what's going on, of the code, of the customers, is more important than ever. So let's have a look at my current process of how I'm building things now. I'll start with a plan. So I'll work with Claude Code or whatever it is to understand what the problem space is and to develop a plan around it. And then I'll get the agent to execute that plan, and then I'll get it to feedback and understand whether it's completed the task completely. This, I think, is the most critical part of this initial inner workflow loop of agentic workflow. Because if you tell an agent how to get it to validate its own work, then it'll be far more successful. If you give it the ability to go out to the internet, to use automation testing, to use unit tests, to do integration tests, to use linting, all of these deterministic things to make the code better, to make it understand how and if it's completed a task, it can be so much better for you. And finally, compounding. And compounding is understanding what's gone wrong within this workflow, what things have failed, what things have succeeded, and how to take that information and put it back into the process as lessons learned to stop it from happening again. So that's my inner loop. And then we've got this thing around it to help support this and to help support the flow and the process and to make it work much better and much more transparently. This is the harness. And the act of dealing with this is harness engineering, and the design of it is harness design. So you have Claude MD, agent files, memories, and agent skills that can help with the planning process. You have sub-agents that can help with the execution, make the token usage that you're going through much more efficient. You've got MCP to help you with the feedback, to go out to the browser to understand whether it succeeded or not, whether it's completed the task efficiently or not. And finally, you've got hooks for compounding the information back into your harness to make things work better the next time. And when I first realised this, when I first started creating this in the best possible way, in a way to make my harness, make my agents communicate better with my code base and make changes to the code base in better ways. I was in stand-up and I gleefully said, I found work again. Because before that point, I was just really talking to the agent and getting to do things. But now I felt like an engineer again. I was creating something around it. I was moving above the agent and creating something to help the agent create code in better ways. So this is my higher up loop, if you want. I'll start with a GitHub issue. I work within GitHub all the time now. So I'll start with a GitHub issue. I will create it. It's basically the same as a plan. I'll create it with Claude code and we'll iterate on it until we're happy with it. I'll do a human review of it, and I'm happy with it, and I'll send it to this stage. And this is parallelization. So it will create a new work tree, or I'll get it to create a new work tree, or I'll get it to create a new Claude worker. So it's a cloud-based worker, which is just an agent. And then I'll send, well, the agent will then work within that parallelized instance, writes the code, tests, then opens a pull request. And that gets sent to GitHub, or I've got GitHub Actions set up to do validation. So there will be some validation that happens in the agent, but I want to prove it externally. I want to prove it within my CI server. And if it fails, then my agent's monitoring it, and it's looking at it to make sure that it's passing or failing. If it fails, then it'll make a change, and it'll push again, and it'll wait again, and it'll just do that until it's decided it's finished. Then it'll go to a code review in GitHub, and I will do a normal code review, and I'll go around and I'll comment on files and comment on lines in files, etc., until I work out whether it's right or wrong. And if I've got a review, I send that back to the coding agent, does the same thing. They will then work through the changes, make the updates, send it to CI, make sure it passes. And, yeah. So I've got a loop happening there that I'm using to check with lots of human review in the loop there. And then if I'm happy with it, I just merge it. And the reality of it is that I'm probably running between 9 and 12 coding agents at once. Around this, so 9 to 10 work trees, dependent on how complicated the things I'm working on are. So this parallelization enables you to scale up the work you're doing. This is a loop. This is the idea that you're creating something towards a defined goal, completing it to a defined goal, and then accepting it. The crazy thing is, it only works if you've got well-engineered projects. So you have to know what to do with software engineering. You have to know what a good project is, what a good setup is. You have to know how to test in the right way. You have to know how to structure your projects. You have to know about clean code. All of this, you have to know what to do. You're a software engineer, again. This is what a loop and loop engineering looks like. So you find the work, you act on it, you verify it, you record something that's happened back to a store, I'll talk about it in a minute, and then you test whether the goal has been accepted, whether the goal conditions have been met, and if not, then you go back through the process again until you complete it. A lot of this is about loops. It's about cycling around the problem, the issue, until you've completed it satisfactorily. Now, the reason that we record information, and I had to say this here today, because of this. So, being stood here today, talking at the Manchester Statistical Society, this is Goodhart's law, and he spoke at this event, created papers here for the Manchester Statistical Society. And it turns out that if you have an agent that has a target on it, it doesn't work very well, which is why you send the information outside. And that leads me on to the next stage. This is called graph engineering. So this is the ability of taking a loop, taking a thing, and then combining it with other loops to create an action out of it. Each stage has its own loop, it iterates until the goal is met, and it's got an orchestrator, a state machine that sits in there underneath it that you record out to tell it what's happening in the system. And that's the thing that decides how you move to the next stage or when you move to the next stage. So that's not a graph really. That's a workflow, that's not a graph. That's a graph. This is some of how we're operating now. Lots of agents doing lots of things, so I'll highlight a few. Telemetry, I was just speaking to Steph about this earlier on. So I have a release and it's got telemetry on it, and I've got an agent that's looking at my telemetry, looking for opportunities to improve things and to send back an issue or whatever back to get fixed and get updated. I've got dependencies, local dependency upgrades that are looking at my dependency graph and deciding whether I need to, there is an opportunity to upgrade something. I'm doing that automatically for me, creating the issues for me. Now, there's still human in the loop in this because you need to stay in control of this. It's very easy when you get to this level for things to go badly very quickly because you've just got loops that are doing stuff for you, then yeah, you need to stay in control. Does this work any better? Well, it feels very much like that. Sorry, I've just been Japan, so good now. It feels very much like an exoskeleton. It feels like I am augmented. I could have done the same thing with Warhammer, similar sort of thing. It feels like I can do so many more things at once. Feels a bit like this. Who remembers this? This is a film from the 1980s called The Lawnmower Man. Don't watch it, it's terrible now. But the idea that it was he had his own virtual reality environment that he controlled, that he had complete access to it, and he could do whatever he wanted within it. A bit more contemporary, only 20 years old, but Minority Report, it feels very much like that, like you're doing things on screens and bringing in context, and yeah, it's really mad. Anything is possible, absolutely anything is possible with these systems that we've got set up. But it doesn't have to go that far. It doesn't have to go to those kinds of levels of craziness. These are the questions that we ask. Do you actually need to care about a piece of code that you're creating? This thing opens up the world to be able to create code very quickly and very easily. And there are things that you need to look after, but there are things you don't need to look after at all, that you don't care about. I've got a couple of examples for this. So I launched this week. So at Umbraco, I do training, I do deep dives into Cloud Code features, I run sessions online where people do demos and ask questions about how we're doing things. And I wanted to create a site for this to bring it all together, to have it in front of people so they could access it. And I went to Claude Design. My entire process was to go to Claude Design and to say, look at umbraco.com and create me a design system of that. And then I downloaded that design system, and then I said to Claude Code, create me a site that will work based on this. I'm creating Astro because I could use the React components that the design system had created. And then I said, go to Google Drive and pull me all the transcripts, and then go to the presentations and pull me all the slides, and get all the videos there together, and just mash it all, Minority Report style, into something, and that's what it came out with. 5 hours. From start to finish. Is it perfect? No. I've looked at the code. Yes, I've looked at the code. It's Astro, so it's not very difficult. But I've looked at the code, and it's okay. It's serving 40 people. Would I have been given time, 40 or 60 people, would have been given the time to spend a week on that beforehand? No. There's a lot of value in this. It can really help people. It even does things like takes all the transcripts and creates full blog posts out of it as well. So it's pretty cool what it can do, but it's the time it took to do it. And I don't really care about that code that much. There's like 10 people looking at it a week. So there's always that you've got to ask yourself now is, do we take it to the nth degree as I've just shown you there with my process? Yes, I care about that code, it's used by thousands of people, but this code, no. And then you get to hyper-personalized apps. So this is my colleague at Brackle called Seb, and he loves TV programs, and he loves measuring the TV programs that he's looking at, reviewing them and whatever, and structuring them. But he hates the applications that are set up there for him to do that. So the ones that he can just log into and use them. He says the UI is really terrible. It's much too cluttered, too many features, etc. So he found a solution that had all the data in it, but provided an API that it could connect to. And then he just said to Claude, oh, make me something that looks a bit like that. His exact customer base is 2, him and his wife. It will never release to anybody, and that's okay. Would he have built this without the ability to do it in Claude Code? Probably not. Because, I mean, he might have done if he was a real geek, but I think he has a life. So he basically, just created this in a couple of hours. And that's amazing. That really opens up the world to be able to do these sorts of things. Are there any downsides to this? Well, we've spent the last 5 years, 10 years, trying to stop people from context switching in the developer world, trying to stop people from, to get people into a flow state, trying to get people so that they can concentrate on something. That's very much gone out the window now, I think. Graphs and loops help with this, but you're still bouncing around with lots of different things. You're managing the delivery of something all the time. And it is really, really exhausting. I can only do 3 or 4 hours of this at a time. This is a film from the 1960s called The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. Don't go and watch it, it's very depressing, as most films of this time were, especially kitchen sink dramas. But I love the title here, because when you're a long distance runner, when you're running marathons, you're concentrating on yourself. You're managing your own system, you're making sure you're hydrated enough. You're making sure that you have the right energy, that you have the right pace, that you're not burning yourself out. All of these types of things. And I see an analogy between that and developers now. It's becoming, unfortunately, an individualistic sport. It's becoming you on your own. I don't work with anybody else on the products I'm working on, because I can do a lot of it already. And that is really worrying. I think I'm very much concerned about that nobody else understands the code that I'm creating as much as I do, because we don't work on it together. This from The Simpsons. The idea that if you just keep pressing yes and yes and yes, on your code instance. That's called cognitive surrender. It's a very good blog post. That the idea that you're giving up your cognition to the agents. Again, that's automation. You don't want to do that. It's actually hard to do. It's hard work to stay engaged. I read this great blog post, I don't put it here unfortunately, from last year, which was describing the way that developers work is going towards being similar to a train driver. So a train driver, most of their life is really boring. They press one button, I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah, you get the idea. But the price of failure is catastrophic here. They've got to stay on the ball all the time to make sure that they're not skipping a line, to make sure they're, And it's exactly the same with developers. You need to stay engaged to what it's doing and what it's creating. I don't know if anybody has read this before, the idea of an AI vampire. So it feels very much like a slot machine. You put your money in, you pull a lever, it gives you some code at the end, and it might be good, it might be crap, but it is addictive. I know people that are very good with their work-life balance, and they say to me, it's Saturday afternoon, and it was just one more prompt, just one more. I'm like, I've got the answer, and I've got the outcome from this. And that's very worrying as well. I mean, it was, I don't know, Facebook or Meta, or whatever they call it this week, they're going to court because they have been accused of creating dopamine hits and addictive UIs and all this sort of thing. Are we turning work into a dopamine hit? That's really, really worrying. And it's really, really easy to burn out from this. You've really got to be careful because it doesn't feel like work. All you're doing is you're talking to an agent, you're trying to get it, it's really tiring, but you're talking to an agent. You're not actually physically creating anything yourself. You're just managing this thing. So I've done developers redundant. Well, I think you probably know the answer to this. Developers have a unique need to play, to understand, to create. I'm talking about who developers are, and when I hire developers, when I talk to developers, then this is what I'm looking for, that innate ability, that innate drive to play. I think that a lot of developers out there have not lost that childish streak in them. They want to understand how things work. They want to pick something up and pull it apart to understand how it works. That's the way I am. That's the way I work with these sorts of things. And that is our superpower. That is what developers, that's the reason we exist in this industry, and the industry that's grown up around us. For me, this is probably one of the most important things. These models, these things are infinitely generic in their knowledge. They have unbridled capacity for things. They know everything about everything, but they know nothing about what you are doing. Your job is to translate and make the most of what the agent is capable of doing to get the right outcome from it. You must provide the purpose and the direction to that process. You must also stay engaged, as I just said, and stay in control of that. And that is the job of software engineers now. Because at the end of the day, these systems we build need to serve and look after thousands of people, thousands of, and if something goes wrong, as I was just saying with the train driver, you've got to be careful of that. And it takes really long-term critical thinking and critical reflection, because the sessions are there and they only work for a certain amount of time. Yes, you can compound information, but the global understanding of it and retaining that global understanding is really, really important to achieve. And it's actually got harder because you need to get into the head of what it's creating. What about non-developers? And by non-developers in this case is that. So a cross-functional team. people outside of development that work in the same product world. Now, what has happened in the past is that you have specialisms. You'll have design, you'll have a tester that does testing, and never the two shall meet, or very rarely. We've been positively encouraged for the last 15 years to stay in your lane, to stay with what you're doing, and not to move outside of that. If you want some testing doing, you go and see the tester. If the designer wants to understand some front end stuff, you go and talk to the front end guys. But that's all changing now, I think. Roles are overlapping, everybody does a bit of everything, because finally you can move outside of that. The reason we specialised within this was because there's too much to take in, there's too much information to take in and to process and to keep up to date with. But with Claude there to help you now, it's less of an issue. You can have a designer. I know that designers now are building storybooks. They're understanding the state by actually having it in situ. It's a bit of a problem to figure that, but yeah, they're doing that. You've got testers that are looking at a bug and going, oh, I know how to fix that. If it's a pull request, then the front end people or developers can check it's okay. But they're capable of doing that. You've got product managers who are looking at a feature going, no, that's a small feature, I'll just get it to create it for me. You've got front-end developers that are looking at design and trying to understand how that works. We're moving closer together. And I think that's an amazing thing to be able to come together, because we're not pigeons. We shouldn't be pigeonholed. And we have been for such a long time. Our interests do not allay to one specialism. People just don't work like that. I see this very much as the collapse of specialism. And I think it's a really good thing. It makes people better people by being able to understand other people and their processes and their ideas. And now, if you've got a front-end developer that understands how design works, you'll get better front-end out of it. It makes collaboration so much easier. It leads to this as well. So, it used to be, not my job, too technical, I need engineers, I don't code, not my skill set, too complicated. And now it's, I can build it, I can design it, etc. And it's turning us all into geeks, which is absolutely brilliant, I think. The more geeks the world has, the better, I think. But, you know, joking aside, a while ago now, there was a concept of citizen coder. People were saying we're going to be able to have no-code solutions that will be able to, that non-developers will be able to create all the apps and etc. etc. It's all rubbish. But now it's a reality. When I go to Practically AI, the meetup that I helped run, we ran this. We set this up for software engineers, but we were amazed at how many people came along that weren't software engineers, were developers, designers, testers. It's incredible. It's opening up everything. Taking it one step further, this is a tweet from Boris Cherny, and he's saying that it could be that the developer role or roles in general within products kind of amalgamate into things. So he's not saying that these are the new job titles. He's saying that these are the roles within the job type, the job and the product specific sphere. So prototypers, somebody who's coming up with loads of ideas. Builders who turns prototypes. Sweepers who looks at the UI and makes the code better and more suitable for production systems. Growers that take stats and iterates on it for product market fit. Maintainers that look after the code and make sure it's still valid. I think that's a fairly good understanding of how things are going to work right about now. One of the final sections I've got tonight is becoming a better human through AI. Everybody thinks this is going to take away, or a lot of people think it's going to take away our jobs, or it's going to make us redundant, and not required by society. I'd like to flip it on its head and say, how can we use this thing to become better? Everybody thinks that AI is about this. It's about becoming as productive as you possibly can be and working in one vector and one vector only to produce as much code as you possibly can do. But it's not. AI works in all directions, in many, many different directions. You can use it to explore, to understand, to experiment, to learn, and taking that mindset and using that and converting it and thinking differently instead of productivity, and using it to learn, to explore, to find out information, to grow. That's how you become a better human through AI. This is a concept that's been around for a while now, the T-shaped individual. So the person has a deep specialism in something, but has an understanding, an experience, a desire to learn other things outside of that. And AI very much helps you to expand that T in what you're doing, in how you're working, and helps you to become a better generalist. Very, very cool. So, if something interests you, explore it. There is no better time to follow your own passions, your own interests, your own designs, your own desires. To paraphrase Matrixishness, there is no box anymore. There is no box. Don't sit inside of it. I think AI is very much about augmenting your weaknesses away. So I think everybody is, in this context, I think of people as spheres. Spheres of information, spheres of experience, spheres of knowledge. And there are natural cracks and holes within that experience and that knowledge. There are things that you don't understand properly, like DevOps. You might not understand DevOps perfectly well. And this is a gap in your knowledge, and it makes things slower for you to be able to do, or means that you have to go and speak to the people. AI fills in that gaps for you. It gives you the ability to gloss over those inconsistencies, those gaps, and to create things. Because if you've got knowledge around the system, around how something works, then you can often understand. If you're given some pointers, you can understand how to do that thing. And then also, if you use AI to learn about something, if you turn it around and say to the AI, how does this work? Explain that. You have this thing which has absolutely no ability to get annoyed at you for asking the same question 50 times. Although it did yesterday, which would. Yes. So, yes, you can use this to make yourself better by growing, by using it to grow and make yourself a better person. 6 months ago, I knew nothing about Cloudflare. I've not read any documentation. I've just experimented and played and used the AI to teach me how it works. And it's worked really well for me. I had a conversation with somebody about dyslexia, and saying that it's the same sort of thing. He experienced the same sort of thing himself. If he doesn't understand something, it's because he doesn't understand how to read it. He'll get the AI to change it, to adapt it to what he needs it to be, which is very, very cool. So what's next in this world? Well, I think there will be improved support for harness, loops, and graph engineering. Very much. That will improve the process that I talked about earlier on. Token efficiency is going to become much more important within this world. Local and open weight models, they're going to become more important as we move forward. But through all of this, through all this change that we're going to be happening, and I think, well, yeah, through all this change that's going to be happening, it's about humans staying in control, humans being augmented, because I think this has leveled the playing field. Anybody can come along and create something now pretty easily and pretty quickly. But That's not going to differentiate yourself from any other company or any other individual out there. The only way to differentiate yourself now is to use AI and humans together. That's a differentiator. My advice to people, use as many tokens as you can at the minute to explore and understand, because the window's very much closing on subsidised tokens, and they are subsidised tokens. Open weight might change that, but I'm not sure. And play and explore and understand. Go and do something, go and create something, go and play with something, go and understand something. Use the agents, use the models to help you to grow. But always be critical of its output, of what it's creating for you. I think that's a great thing, to be critical, because these things lie, they hallucinate all the time. And to be trained to be critical of that is a good thing. It'll help with social media, for instance. And then finally, in this, suspend disbelief. The models are capable. The models can do a huge amount of things. I was playing around with them last week, and I managed to get it to create acceptance tests around command line interface tools. I never thought that was possible before. But yes, explore and play, suspend disbelief. And what I mean by that is the only thing holding you back from getting better with AI is your disbelief in what it can do and your belief in what your abilities are. So just lower your disbelief, go out and play. Will all this thinking be redundant next year? I don't think so. I think we're at the point now where the fundamentals are pretty much set. They're pretty much there. This was the year that it happened. And now it's a chance to understand those fundamentals and to understand how to use them in the best possible way. Am I still terrified? There's always a possibility. But I think, I am, probably at the start of the talk I didn't think like it, but seem like it, but I am an optimist in these sorts of things. And I am optimistic because I've seen the power of what these things can do if you embrace them and if you allow them to help you and you grow through your interactions of them. And that can only be a positive thing. So I promised the slides, if you want to take the QR code again, and if you want to connect to me on LinkedIn.
Now it's time for question. We try to have as much time as we can for your question, and also get time to get answer from our speaker. Then, who would like to ask first?
Just going back to how you were kind of structuring your research. What is the current impact on your personal usage in terms of credits above your kind of pro subscription at the moment? When your own Gen subscription part of that was in the cloud, but then
I think so. To get a good loop, you need a good harness. Yeah. And when you have a good harness, especially if you consider token usage and how you would apply things like determinism within those loops and that harness. And then, because you're developing a loop around things, you can train it or you can adapt it down to lesser models. So I would say that I'm probably using less tokens by understanding my harness and understanding the loop in better ways and making things more efficient. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does make sense, yeah.
So you obviously anchored in Claude, with you all the way with that. What opportunities do you think there might be to use the other LLMs as additional agents as external thinking partners for challenges on what Claude is doing?
Absolutely, I agree. There is a skill that I use, which is Codex Reviewer, I think it's called. And what it will do is, at the end of the process, you say Codex/brand Codex Review, and it will go and use the Codex LLMs to do that for you. So yes, absolutely, I think that's a really good way to do it, especially as it's been proven that a model marking its own homework will not catch things at all. So that's why when I'm reviewing, I always use a different antagonistic model within that. I can't wait for the time actually where I use Claude Code less. I think it's the best harness at the minute out there, but I think everybody's realised now that models are commoditised, and the point the point of interest now and the point of value is the harness itself. And we're seeing more harnesses coming out, better harnesses coming out. It'll take them a while to catch up. But being able to use Claude Code with other models as well, and yeah, it's just, in the last 3 weeks, it's a wide open market again with Kimi K3 and Quen that was released yesterday, was it? You know, all of these things coming out, they're just changing the market all the time. So, yes. Does that answer the question? Sorry, I went off, completely off.
I think I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Tying into that previous question as well, we've seen Grokbot released, launch this week as well.
Yeah.
And tying into agentic swarms, what possibilities do you think that has going forward? And do you think that might be a new paradigm of?
Well, I think agentic swarms are very similar to graph engineering. Actually, I think that's when you get a series of loops, a series of agents that are doing things that are connected by a state machine. I think that's exactly where we're going. That's what Anthropic are doing, and Cursor, and lots of other companies out there as well.
So you use the shared memory across different regions, right?
Yes.
So did you ever face memory corruption when you work across? So how did you solve it?
Well, at the minute, my compounding around this is something that I control very closely. So I make sure and I understand when I'm going to put something in, because controlling the harness is really important to me. So yes, so when a compound at the end of a hook, I'll put something into a store somewhere, and then I'll get that to create updates, and then I accept them, human in the loop as much as I can, especially with skills, or LLM wikis as well.
Thanks, very interesting, especially emphasizing the role of human is important. One role you didn't mention in the overall is the project manager role. So how does that get impacted? I'm thinking about the responsibility of making sure there's a requirement, sign-off, risk management, financial management down to it. How does that work in bringing a team together?
So I think there may be another level compared to the prototype builder, etc. It could be that there's always room, I think, for that commercial person in the room. So it could get to the point where you have somebody who's looking after the code base, somebody who's looking after the technical part of it, and somebody that's looking after the commercial elements to it, to make sure that those two things are aligned at all times. I think in my diagram, I talked about product manager. So it's probably product manager, project manager, really that type of role.
Because, sorry, just what I was thinking, project managers, a lot of argument, scope creep management and all that. So how does that get, I'm thinking about your environment, how is your
Yes.
project management working in that currently? Because there's also human contact, well, you can automate that if you want,
Yeah.
the argument.
So we're very lucky in the way that I work, in that the way that my area especially works is we are driving things technically. So I have lots of contacts with community members which I've come from. So we take requirements, And we do a lot of those tasks already, and we have a product manager that we work with to make sure. So again, it's bringing those worlds together. I mean, I ran an agency for 10 years, so I'm perfectly happy with having that level of contact with people. But I've spoken to project managers at other meetups that are saying the same thing. They're able to actually do some coding themselves. They're able to contribute to the project. That's really amazing. I mean, I know so many project managers that feel frustrated that they have to go through the medium of the developers to get anything done.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when each kind of, sorry, you go, mate.
No, please.
Oh, yeah. So when each model gets released, so when each model gets released, so say for example, a common recent example is going from 4.8 to 5, and how verbose it is and it isn't. Is it a case of, like, how do you anticipate that? Because I know myself it's been frustrating, and it must be frustrating if you come in one day and it just waffling on like it has been recently. What are some like commercial or enterprise tips to essentially get the model to behave how you want it, or is this one of the challenges that we're always going to have?
I think it's a challenge that you're going to have. It appears that the fleet from 4 to 5 is a dangerous ground for models, because when GPT-4 came out, 5 came out, whenever it was, part 4 I think it was, came out last year, it was the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, and I honestly think that Anthropic have dropped the ball with 5, with Opus 5. And my advice to people is move to a different model.
Yeah, because it's encouraging people to go back to 4.8, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you're not using the latest technology.
Well, I've moved to Sonnet, now Sonnet 5, and I'm finding it pretty good. Or one thing that I have been doing recently is using Sonnet with a advisor pattern. So I'll have Sonnet, and then I'll have a sub-agent, which is Fable. Yeah. And Sonnet comes along, and if Sonnet says, I don't know how to do that, or I'm struggling, or I'm going down a rabbit hole, then it'll ask Fable how to do something and pull it back. So these things are going to make it happen more and more, I think.
No, that makes sense.
I just wanted to touch upon, you said earlier about you've sort of moved up the level of abstraction, you know, from say like sitting on actually doing the physical coding, the sort of more, I suppose, the more laborious task of the physical. Do you think we'll ever reach a time where AI will advance to the point where it'll just keep going up the chain of abstraction to the point where the human will no longer be in the loop at all? Or do you think there'll always be that need for the uniqueness of the human?
There will always be that need to understand what's actually happening, what's going on. I don't think organisations will let it happen. And if an organisation does let it happen, I think things will start to go wrong very quickly. Because you need people there in control of it. You can't see the control. Imagine a bank and they didn't understand how their systems worked. Didn't have people that had organisational knowledge of things. It's just regulatory.
Okay, it's a little bit of an observation. Fantastic talk, Phil.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the personal aspect of all this, because I think actually most people are in that situation now. The observation I have is that I'm probably echoing what you just said about software developers, because I mean, I've now done lots of little bits of vibe coding, and I know lots of other people in the room probably have as well. But I haven't really got the knowledge or the confidence to actually commit that product out into the World Wide Web and have people access it and know that it's safe and secure. So I'm absolutely sure there's going to be role for software developers going forward. But your talk also prompted in my mind this whole thinking, well, you know, obviously we're in your space, we're in the software development world where, you know, we're working for technology companies in a sort of technical sense. There's all these other roles out in society which are affected by AI as well. You know, whether you're an accountant or you're a marketeer or you're a salesperson, all the rest of it. And I think there's probably a similar story, and it may be that we've got a whole list of talks that we now need to generate, where people are looking at how they're harnessing AI in their particular role, in their particular organisation. But what would your thought be on that?
I think that's managed intelligence. That's the role of people now, is to be able to, whatever their job title, whatever their specialism now, it's being able to bend these things to their will sustainably.
That's a great talk, thank you. I'm particularly interested in the human skills that get augmented along with the AI. There were two slides that could appear to contradict each other, so I just wanted clarification. One is the collapse of specialism,
Yes.
and then you've got the T skills, which has got the deep expertise, and AI stretching the T. Just wondering if you could expand on your thoughts on the specialism and the importance.
Yes, I think the domain knowledge is still really important. Being able to understand how things work in a specialist kind of way is still really important. I think it's a collapse in specialism, but a collapse of pure specialism, I think, is probably.
So it's not the specialist skills aren't important, it's the fact that other people have a higher medium knowledge of that skill.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where it's going to go. I think it's a collapse of just owning your own square metre of grass.
Yeah.
I think you can't do that anymore. And I don't think you should.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, my question is that how do you, what would be your strategy to evaluate the code? For example, this code is going to be serving thousands of people.
Yes.
And then, because in my own experience, if I use GenAI and then, for example, codex, and then it just like generate many Python scripts in one set. Each Python script is like really large scripts. It's like kind of like really difficult for human to take into the details to see what the codes actually do. So it's kind of like black box to me. But in the same time, because it's like serving many people. So do you like mainly rely on the other GenAI model to evaluate the code, or you also like have some human input as well?
Well, this is again where my experience as a software engineer, software developer for such a long time counts, because I will always try and create a base version of the thing which is really well architected, really well structured with the right patterns in it, so that I keep control of it. That might be generated by AI, but I'll keep it very small initially and create all the patterns around it. And then if something that I don't understand, I'll ask it how and why it's done these things. And then I'll create testing around it, so that of big things are made of small things. So it's about getting that base right first. Because I nearly put a slide in talking about this. So the idea that you create your base, your base understanding, your base application, and then you create your testing around it, and then you create your harness around it, and then you create your loops around it, and then you can move up from there to, yeah. So it's moving through an evolution of making this code work better with agents, but making it your own.
Like, so further on that, like from the really basics level, do you do it like manually, and when it comes to like become more and more complex, and then you can GenAI input, like do
It depends. Sometimes I might do, but sometimes, mainly I would probably, because if I was a less experienced developer, I would probably do it and understand it initially, get to the basic version of it, and then work up from there. But because I have lots of experience, I can just use the right words to create the base version. I can say to it, right, testing, I want to build a pattern to understand how to do, how to set up my app phase of my unit test or my integration tests. And yeah, I can use all the right words, but I agree with you, as somebody with less experience, I'm ready to do, I'm not sorry, I apologise. But yeah, that is probably the learning aspect of it. Yeah?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry.
I think I'm asking you to expand on that to an extent. You've mentioned obviously that when you're getting the AI to create a lot of code, you have your own experience and skills, hard won in the trenches of software development over the years.
Yes.
What are the implications then, if you're now at a point where you're not writing code by hand, and presumably your colleagues are reaching that point as well? What are the implications for training the next generation of developers? How do we make sure that that happens in the same way?
I agree with you. I've thought long and hard about this, about what junior developers are going to do now. And I've spoken to quite a lot of junior developers about this. And the ones that are growing are using AI to grow. So you flip it on its head and you ask it lots and lots of questions, or the junior developer asks it lots of questions. For them, they don't know any difference. This is normal for them. This is their reality. So if you train them to use the tools to learn and grow, they will develop quickly. I think they'll probably develop a lot quicker than we ever have been. I think. I'm more worried about the people in the middle. I worry about the people that, like, you know, I'm old. When I first started developing, I did everything. So I was a front-end developer, I was a designer, I was, you know, the back-end developer, the SQL, etc. Yeah. So I've had experience of the whole gamut. I know how the product works from end to end. Whereas there are lots of mid-level developers out there now that have only worked in a specialism. They only see their own area. And it's trying to help them to move outside of that. That's a more challenging problem, I think.
So this was a good section. So my question is, we mainly use these agents for creating some content or creating code for any other purpose. So whatever information we are giving, is that all safe, all data safe and secure, or is there anything we need to be concerned about?
About training the model, then yes. So we can turn that off, and especially if you pay for it. Well, definitely if you pay for it. So there is in ChatGPT, in OpenAI, and in Anthropic stuff, there is a don't send my data for training options. You just got to make sure that you do that.
Just a word of warning, if you give feedback, it will overwrite that. So you think you're not sharing, but if you give feedback on the model's response, it will share what you asked it not to share. So just be aware.
Yeah.
Do you have testers now in your team, and how have you seen them kind of evolving with all this?
I don't personally have testers, but in the last team that I worked at, we did have testers. And I think testers as a group are probably one of the first people to really take this on board, because it's got to be so frustrating to not able to go in and make changes and updates and play around with things, and not be given access to these things. So the testers that I speak to really like this because it opens up their world, I think. But I mean, personally, my testing, I've done it all myself. I'm a frustrated tester.
How long? You mentioned you now work on your own.
Yes.
Is that just because of this specific project, or
Yeah, I think
is that what you just okay?
it's because of this specific project, and it's because I can do so much more as well within this. And what I'm doing, MCP is not that difficult, really. So probably 25% of my 30% of my work is MCP, and the rest is helping other people in the organisation and developing skills and working with the community and that type of thing, and doing things like this.
Good.
Yeah, so you show a workflow that you send over the general output to GitHub, and then in GitHub you have like some unit testing or input testing. Those testing is like do you manually create those testing or use data?
So I create patterns for how I want a test to be, how I want them to be set up and structured.
Yeah.
And then I put that into a skill and I say, when you create tests, use that pattern.
And then you already define the criteria for the like class.
Yes, so within the base MCP stuff, I would define the criteria. But actually, in a lot of cases, it's pretty good at writing the scenarios around things.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I do check a lot, is scenarios is creating in tests. Because that's the entry point into understanding it more.
Yeah, it's like my concern is like once the system is getting bigger and bigger, it's kind of become like a black box to me. Like, the code is just like really complex still.
You have to take the time.
Yeah.
You can produce code quicker, but you have to take the time to understand.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you push it in, when you commit it, it's your code. It doesn't matter whether GenAI has created it or not.
Yeah.
It's your code.
You take the responsibility.
Yes. Yes.
And how to protect against this type of situation.
Yeah, exactly. But that's about training. Doing things like the review process, being double reviews and these types of things, and then having antagonistic agents that are reviewing as well, and having much more control around that part of it.
Please, special applause to our
Okay, yeah, just a, well, that's correct. Many thanks again, Phil.
No problem.
So our next presentation session is Mike Irving speaking, and it's called Local AI at the End of the Tunnel. So clearly there's a whole host of manifestations around AI. Local AI now is becoming bigger and bigger, I think. And yes, so look forward to you, as many of you as can possibly come on Tuesday, September 15th. We'll be here with all the same setup as you have today. So many thanks indeed, everybody. Appreciate it.